The world began with a whisper, or so the old tales said. Not a whisper of words, but a breath, a sigh, a ripple through the fabric of everything. And in the quiet village of Silverwood Hollow, nestled deep within the valley where the ancient whispering woods truly earned their name, there lived a girl named Elara, who understood those whispers better than anyone. Elara was 11 years old, with eyes the color of moss after a spring rain, and hair the shade of twilight clouds. Most children in Silverwood Hollow heard the rustle of leaves, the murmur of the river, the distant call of the star deer. But Elara heard more. She heard the soft thrum of the earth beneath her bare feet, a steady, sleepy heartbeat. She heard the tiny, almost imperceptible whizzing of a dewdrop clinging to a spiderweb, humming with the light it held. She heard the deep, resonant hum of the ancient stones that formed the foundations of their homes, carrying echoes of countless seasons. To Elara, the world was a symphony of soft, secret sounds, a constant lullaby woven by the magic that flowed through the land. They were the whispers, as she called them, though they were rarely audible to others. They were vibrations, feelings, a sense of presence and purpose in every living and non-living thing. Her home, like all homes in Silverwood Hollow, was a testament to the village's deep connection to the natural world. It was built from pale smooth river stones and timbers from trees that had fallen naturally, their wood still imbued with a gentle enduring warmth. Lichen, soft as velvet, grew in intricate patterns on the roof, its subtle glow guiding the way on moonless nights. Outside her window, a magnificent ancient silverwood tree stood sentinel, its leaves shimmering with an ethereal, silvery light that seemed to catch and hold the starlight. When the wind stirred its branches, it didn't just rustle, it sang, a clear high note that filled Elara with a profound sense of peace. Every morning, Elara would wake before the sun had fully crested the eastern peaks, drawn by the first gentle chorus of the day. She'd slip out of her small bed, careful not to disturb her mother and father, and make her way to the window. There, she'd listen. The first whispers of dawn were always the most hopeful. The sleepy sigh of the earth, as it stretched towards the coming light. The delicate ping of frost, melting from blades of grass. The tiny, excited eye flutters of the awakening insects, each one a miniature drumbeat in the grand orchestra. And then, the grand crescendo. The sky turning from inky violet to soft rose, and the world blooming into soft, glowing colors. Morning, Silverwood, she'd murmur to the world outside, a quiet greeting that felt like a secret shared between friends. Her parents, Mara and Theron, loved her deeply, but they didn't quite understand her fascination with listening to the air. Mara, with her hands always busy weaving the sturdy, luminous fabrics for which Silverwood Hollow was known, would smile kindly. "Still dreaming, little moonbeam?" she'd ask, her voice as warm and comforting as fresh-baked bread. Theron, a quiet man who spent his days tending the glowing moss gardens that provided light and sustenance to the village, would simply nod, a knowing glint in his eye, as if he too heard something, but perhaps not with the same clarity. Elara didn't mind. The whispers were her secret, her special connection. They taught her things. When a storm was brewing, a low, anxious thrum in the air days before the clouds appeared. Where the sweetest berries grew, a joyful, insistent hum emanating from the bushes. Even when a lost star deer fawn needed help, a faint, mournful echo carried on the breeze. One crisp autumn morning, as the leaves of the whispering woods began to turn hues of fiery amber and deep crimson, Elara felt a change in the usual symphony. A new whisper. It wasn't loud, not jarring, but it was different. It began as a subtle shift, a faint discord in the usually harmonious hum of the village. It felt like a note held too long, or a chord played just slightly out of tune. It was a tremor, a tiny ripple of unease, that seemed to emanate not from the earth, nor the trees, nor the river, but from the sky itself. This was unusual. The whispers from the sky were usually the most ancient and constant. The slow, majestic drift of the clouds, the vast, silent glowy of the moon, and the countless, shimmering tinkles of the stars. The stars, in particular, were the source of much of Silverwood Hollow's magic. Their light, woven into the very fabric of the world, was what made the silverwood trees glow, the moss gardens flourish, and the fabrics Mara wove shimmer. It was the star-spun essence, a gentle, pervasive energy that nourished everything. But new whisper. It wasn't the sparkling tinkle of the stars. It was a faint, almost yearning, I say, gal. And it seemed to be growing. Ilara spent the day feeling its strange resonance. As she helped her mother gather glowing moon petals for their evening tea, the sigh seemed to pulse faintly in the air. As she watched her father carefully prune the luminescent moss, coaxing brighter light from its velvet folds, the sigh seemed to wrap around the edges of the familiar hum. By evening, as the first stars began to pierce the darkening sky, the sigh had grown undeniable. It felt like a thread pulled taut, vibrating with an unseen tension. It was not a sound of distress, but of deep, quiet longing. And it seemed to be coming from the direction of the echoing glade. The echoing glade was an ancient, revered place, even by the standards of Silverwood Hollow. It lay deep within the Whispering Woods, a clearing ringed by the oldest, tallest silverwood trees, their trunks as wide as small houses. The glade was said to be a place where the barrier between the worlds was thin, where the star-spun essence pooled and swirled, and where the whispers were clearest, strongest. No one ever went there alone, especially after dark. It was a place of immense beauty, but also of immense power, and a healthy respect for its mysteries was ingrained in every child. Ilara had only been to the echoing glade a few times, always with her parents or a group of elders, for ceremonies of renewal or quiet contemplation. The whispers there were overwhelming, a glorious chorus that made her head swim with wonder. But now, the sigh she felt seemed to be drawing her there. It was a call, a silent beckoning that resonated deep within her chest. That night, Ilara couldn't sleep. The sigh from the glade was too strong, too insistent. It was a quiet ache in the air, a beautiful, melancholic song that no one else seemed to hear. She slipped out of bed again, but this time, she didn't just go to the window. She dressed in her warmest tunic and trousers, pulled on her sturdy boots, and carefully unlatched the front door. The village was bathed in the soft, blue-white glow of the silverwood trees and the shimmering moss gardens. The air was cool and smelled of pine and damp earth. The familiar whispers of the village were still there, the gentle creak of old wood settling, the soft hiss of the river flowing, the distant snuffle of a sleeping stardeer. But above it all, the sigh from the echoing glade pulsed, a beacon in the quiet night. A shiver ran down Ilara's spine, not of fear, but of profound anticipation. She knew with a certainty that settled deep in her bones that she had to follow this whisper. It was calling her, and she felt a responsibility to answer. It was a whisper unlike any she had heard before, and it felt important, vital. She crept past the sleeping houses, their windows glowing softly like drowsy eyes. The path to the Whispering Woods was well worn, but beyond the village edge, it quickly narrowed into a winding trail beneath the towering trees. The air grew cooler here, and the silence deepened, broken only by the occasional nocturnal creature. As she ventured deeper, the Whispering Woods truly began to live up to their name. The wind, weaving through the dense canopy of ancient pines and broadleaf silverwoods, created a chorus of rustles, sighs, and hums. Each tree seemed to have its own voice, a distinct resonance that Ilara could distinguish. There was the deep, rumbling bass of the old ironbark trees, the delicate, high-pitched whistle of the willow weavers, and the ethereal, shimmering song of the silverwoods themselves. But tonight, the dominant sound, the dominant feeling, was that yearning sigh. It grew stronger with every step, pulling her deeper into the heart of the forest. It was an urgent whisper now, a beautiful, sorrowful plea. Ilara walked for what felt like hours, guided by the ever-intensifying pull. The path grew fainter, the trees denser, and the ambient glow from the village faded behind her. She began to rely entirely on her senses, her ears attuned to the subtle shifts in the forest symphony, her bare hands occasionally reaching out to feel the rough bark of a tree, letting its ancient vibrations guide her. Then, she saw it. A faint, almost imperceptible light shimmering through the trees ahead. It wasn't the usual blue-white glow of the silverwoods, nor the warm yellow of the moss gardens. This light was different. It was a deep, iridescent purple, pulsing softly, like a distant heartbeat. Her heart quickened. Nay. She pushed through a curtain of shimmering vines, their leaves brushing against her face like soft fingers, and stepped into the echoing glade. The glade was breathtaking. Even in the dim purplish light, its majesty was undeniable. The colossal silverwood trees that ringed the clearing seemed to touch the stars, their highest branches disappearing into the inky blackness above. Their trunks, smooth and silvery, pulsed with the same soft purple light, as if they were veins carrying this strange new energy. In the very center of the glade, where the star-spun essence usually swirled like a silent, visible river of light, there was a pool. Not a pool of water, but a pool of pure, concentrated light, shimmering with that same ethereal purple. It pulsed gently, slowly, like a vast, breathing entity. And from this pool the sigh emanated. It was no longer a faint whisper, but a deep, resonant hum that filled the entire glade, vibrating through the ground, through the trees, and through Elara herself. It was the sound of profound longing, of an immense, beautiful sorrow. Elara stepped closer, drawn by an irresistible curiosity. The air on the pool was cool, almost cold, yet it hummed with an intense, living energy. As she neared the edge of the light pool, she noticed something else. Something she had never seen before, even in the tales of the glade. Floating within the shimmering purple light, suspended as if by an unseen force, were fragments. They looked like shards of crystal, but they weren't solid. They were translucent, shimmering with faint rainbows of light, and they drifted slowly within the pool, like ethereal snowflakes. Each fragment, no bigger than her thumb, pulsed with its own tiny individual whisper, a miniature echo of the great sigh that filled the glade. They were whispers of memories, of dreams, of starlight itself. Elara reached out a trembling hand, her fingers aching to touch the nearest fragment. As her fingertips brushed against the cool, vibrant air above the pool, one of the shimmering shards drifted closer. It pulsed with a soft, inviting warmth, and as it drew nearer, its whisper grew clearer, more distinct than any she had ever heard. It was a voice. Not a human voice, but a sound woven from pure starlight and longing. It spoke without words, directly into her mind, a torrent of images and feelings. She saw vast, swirling nebulae, distant suns being born, ancient constellations shifting across cosmic oceans. She felt the silent, patient watch of countless stars, their endless journey through the void. And then, she felt a profound sense of loss, a chilling emptiness, as if something vital had been torn away from this cosmic tapestry. The whisper intensified, filling her with a strange, compelling sadness. The shard pulsed brighter, and then, with a delicate, almost audible ping, it gently settled onto her outstretched palm. It was impossibly light, like holding a fragment of solidified starlight. It hummed softly against her skin, a constant, gentle vibration that went straight to her heart. And in that moment, as the shard rested in her hand, the world around her changed. The purple light in the glade deepened, pulsed with renewed intensity. The great sigh became a chorus, a multitude of voices, all speaking without words, all echoing the same profound message. Elara looked up, her gaze drawn skyward, past the ancient trees, past the familiar stars. And there, where the familiar constellations usually shone, she saw a gap, a dark, impossibly black void where a cluster of stars should have been. A place of absence, a place of silence. The whispers in her hand, in the glade, in the very air around her, all coalesced into a single undeniable truth, echoing through her mind, lost. Something has been lost. A piece of the sky, a source of the star-spun essence has vanished. None need now. And then, a new whisper, clearer and more urgent than any before, rose from the shimmering fragment in her hand. A whisper that seemed to be directly for her, Elara of Silverwood Hollow. It was a whisper of a journey, of a quest, of a hope that only she could answer. The whisper unfurled in her mind like a silken banner woven with starlight, not a sound in her ears, but a profound knowing in her very soul. It spoke of pathways unseen, of echoes of ancient celestial music, and of a gaping void where once a star heart beat. The shimmering fragment in her palm pulsed with a soft, warm light, mirroring the thrumming in her own chest. And what is say, Gaki, quest? A hope only she could answer. One now. Tate now di mai. Chenanedi. Elara stood still, the cool evening air of the glade prickling her skin, but a fire had ignited deep within her. The trees, usually silent witnesses, seemed to lean in, their ancient branches rustling with a gentle encouragement. She looked at the fragment. then up at the darkening sky where the first tentative stars were beginning to prick through the indigo veil. Was one of Ithemi missing? Had a star truly fallen, and its essence become this very shard in her hand? The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. Fear, cold and sharp, tried to coil around her heart. She was just Ilara, a girl of Silverwood Hollow, skilled in tending to the glade, yes, and blessed with its sight, but a quest, a journey into the unknown. Her hands, usually deft with herbs and gentle with injured creatures, felt suddenly small and incapable. But then, the whisper deepened, growing warmer, more insistent. It wasn't a demand but an invitation, a plea. It spoke of a balance disrupted, of a chill spreading through the world's magic, of fading dreams and whispered wishes losing their way. It showed her glimpses, distant mountains capped with perpetual mist, forests where trees sang lullabies, rivers that flowed with liquid moonlight. And in each vision, a faint, almost imperceptible shimmering, like the fragment in her hand, beckoning her onward. A deep breath steadied her. The glade had always been her sanctuary, her teacher. It had revealed its secrets to her, trusted her with its care. And now it seemed, it was entrusting her with something far greater. If the glade, if the star-spun essence itself, called to Weher, then she had to answer. She closed her fingers around the fragment, feeling its warmth seep into her bones, solidifying her resolve. She walked home through the winding paths of Silverwood Hollow, the fragment now tucked safely into a small leather pouch she wore around her neck, its warmth a constant reminder. The familiar scent of wood smoke and late-blooming honeysuckle filled the air, but her heart was already elsewhere, tracing the invisible paths the whisper had shown her. Her mother, Lyra, was stirring a pot of fragrant stew over the hearth fire when Ilara entered their cozy cottage. Lyra, with her kind eyes and hands calloused from weaving and tending their small garden, had always understood Ilara's unique bond with the glade. "You're late, my little starflower," she said, a gentle smile gracing her lips. "The moon is already high." Ilara sat by the fire, letting the warmth soak into her. "Mother," she began, her voice softer than usual, "the glade, it spoke to me tonight, more clearly than ever before." Lyra paused, her gaze thoughtful. She knew the glade had its own voice, its own will. "What did it say, child?" Ilara recounted the events, the shimmering fragment, the echo of a loss, the whisper of a journey. She held out the pouch, letting her mother feel the warmth radiating from within. Lyra's fingers trembled slightly as she touched it. "A piece of the sky," she murmured, her eyes wide with a mixture of wonder and concern. "This is powerful magic, Ilara. And dangerous." "It feels like it needs me, Mother," Ilara insisted, her voice firm. "Like I'm the one meant to find what was lost." Lyra looked at her daughter, really looked at her. She saw not just the girl she had raised, but the glade's chosen, the one whose spirit shimmered with an inner light akin to the stars themselves. A sigh escaped her lips. "I always knew you were destined for great things, Ilara, more than just tending the glade paths. But the world beyond Silverwood Hollow is vast and full of shadows." "And light," Ilara countered, her gaze unwavering. "The glade has taught me to see both." Lyra nodded slowly. "Then you must be prepared. You will need good walking boots, a sturdy cloak, and a satchel for provisions, and maps, if we can find any of the old ones. The Whispering Woods are said to lie to the north, and beyond that, few have ventured far." She pulled Ilara into a fierce hug, her eyes glistening. "Be careful, my heart. Always remember the light within you." Over the next few days, Silverwood Hollow buzzed with a quiet, concerned excitement. Ilara, usually so private about her glade visits, found herself explaining her quest to a few trusted elders. Old Master Eldrin, the village's lorekeeper, listened intently, his wise eyes twinkling. "A piece of the sky, you say? The legends speak of the star-heart shards, fragments of the ethereal veil that sometimes fall to the mortal realms. They are sources of immense power, and if one is truly lost, it could mean a dimming of the world's magic itself." He consulted dusty scrolls, his gnarled fingers tracing ancient runes. "The whisper speaks of mountains and singing forests. That aligns with the path of whispers, a route said to lead through the Whispering Woods, past the sunken peaks, and towards the crystal spires. A long, arduous journey, child." He gifted her a small, intricately carved wooden bird, no bigger than her thumb. "This is a Sylvanus, Ilara. It will not fly, but it will hum softly when danger is near, and point you towards true north when you are lost in the deeper wilds. Keep it safe." Her friends, though saddened by her departure, helped her pack. Lyra painstakingly mended her traveling cloak, reinforced her boots, and filled her satchel with dried fruits, cheese, and a small flask of her special elderberry cordial. "For courage, my love," she'd said, pressing a kiss to Ilara's forehead. On a crisp morning, just as the sun painted the eastern sky with hues of rose and gold, Ilara stood at the edge of Silverwood Hollow. The villagers had gathered, their faces a mixture of solemnity and hope. She hugged her mother tightly, feeling the familiar comfort of her embrace, then turned to face the unknown. The Sylvanus bird, tucked into her belt pouch, felt strangely warm. The shimmering fragment, still around her neck, pulsed gently, a steadfast beacon. "May the glade's light guide your path, Ilara," Master Eldrin called out, his voice strong despite his age. "Return safe, Starflower," Lyra whispered, a tear tracing a path down her cheek. Ilara offered a final heartfelt smile, then turned and stepped onto the winding track that led away from her home, towards the dense emerald canopy of the Whispering Woods. The path soon narrowed, the familiar sunlight dappling through the leaves giving way to a deeper, greener twilight. The air grew cooler, imbued with a scent of damp earth, moss, and something else. Something ancient and undeniably alive. This was the edge of the Whispering Woods, a place spoken of in hushed tones, where trees were said to have memories and the wind carried secrets. As she delved deeper, the whispers began anew, not from the fragment this time, but from the very woods themselves. They weren't words, but a symphony of rustles, creaks, and soft sighs, 1,000 tiny voices woven into a single flowing narrative. She felt them brush against her skin, tug at her hair, and dance around her thoughts. It was like walking into a vast living library, where every leaf held a story. The trees here were unlike those in the glade. Their trunks were wider, gnarled, and covered in luminous green moss, their branches reaching skyward like the arms of ancient giants. Some had eyes, or so it seemed, in the patterns of their bark, watching her with silent, knowing gazes. The ground was soft with centuries of fallen leaves, making her footsteps almost silent. The Sylvanus in her pouch gave a faint, almost imperceptible hum. Ilara paused, listening intently. It wasn't a warning of danger, not yet, but a gentle vibration, like a tuning fork resonating with the forest's own pulse. The fragment around her neck also seemed to quicken its beat, a soft, encouraging warmth. The whisper from the fragment grew clearer now, no longer just a general call, but a specific direction. "He north. Always north." It pointed deeper into the emerald heart of the woods, where the light grew fainter still. Hours passed. The sun became a distant memory, replaced by a soft, ethereal glow that seemed to emanate from the moss-covered stones and the phosphorescent fungi clinging to the tree roots. The sounds of Silverwood Hollow faded entirely, replaced by the immersive chorus of the woods. She felt a profound sense of solitude but not loneliness. The woods felt like a companion, a vast, breathing entity. She followed a faint deer trail, her senses heightened, her spirit attuned to the subtle shifts in the forest's mood. The air grew cooler, and a thin mist began to weave its way through the trees, making the ancient trunks appear even more ghostly. Suddenly, the path opened into a small clearing. In its center stood a tree unlike any she had ever seen. Its trunk was as wide as a small cottage, its bark a swirling tapestry of silver and deep violet. Its leaves, instead of green, were a shimmering, iridescent blue, and from its branches hung delicate bell-shaped flowers that glowed with a soft inner light. They chimed with the slightest breeze, a melody so exquisite it brought tears to Ilara's eyes. This was no ordinary tree. This was a sentinel tree, a guardian of the ancient ways, a living monument to the magic of the woods. Its presence radiated a profound peace, a deep, unwavering wisdom. As Ilara stepped into the clearing, the bluebells on the tree's branches chimed more insistently, a welcoming song. The shimmering fragment around her neck pulsed with an almost joyous light, and the Sylvanus hummed louder, no longer just resonating but actively edgy, pointing towards the tree. A voice not of words but of rustling leaves and deep, resonant vibrations filled her mind. Welcome, child of the glade. We have awaited your coming. Können men, Aubau, Mestie, Karstand. Elara stood awestruck. You know why I am here, she whispered, her voice barely audible in the vast silence of the clearing. The sky weeps for its lost child, the tree's voice resonated. Hey, a star heart shard, a beacon of the ethereal veil, torn from its place and hidden. Its absence casts a long shadow, a chill that deepens with each passing season. Now. I felt it, Elara said, holding up the fragment in her hand, which now glowed brightly. This is a piece of it, isn't it? It calls to me. Oye a sliver, yes. A guide. But the true shard, the heart of it all, lies far to the north, beyond the sunken peaks, nestled in the embrace of the crystal spires. While the trees, blue leaves shimmered, and a faint image began to form in Elara's mind. Jagged, snow-capped mountains reaching into a sky filled with swirling auroras, and at their base, structures that seemed to be carved from pure light, sparkling like diamonds. The crystal spires, Elara murmured, remembering Master Eldrin's words. But how do I get there? The whispering woods are vast and beyond them. The path is long, and trials await, the sentinel tree responded. But the glade has chosen wisely. You carry its light, and the stars themselves have marked your spirit. First you must pass through the heartwood maze. It tests the spirit, revealing true intention. Olnimanden. The heartwood maze. Elara repeated. Is it dangerous? Gunly to those who are lost in themselves, the tree replied, its voice softening. It is a labyrinth of ancient roots and shifting paths, woven by the eldest spirits of the wood. It reflects the seeker's inner landscape. If your heart is true, it will guide you. If your resolve falters, it will confuse you until you find your center once more. Italu. Anaditate, Hananu, Kibadai, Inastiuhe. The tree's roots, thick as old river stones, began to shift subtly on the clearing floor, parting to reveal a narrow opening, barely visible amidst the moss and ferns. A deep, earthen scent wafted from within. This is your first step, Elara of Silverwood Hollow. Trust your sight, trust the whispers, and trust the light you carry. Elara bowed her head in gratitude. Thank you, great sentinel. She took a deep breath, adjusted her satchel, and with the fragment glowing steadily in her hand, she stepped into the dimly lit opening. The entrance closed silently behind her, the roots weaving themselves back into an unbroken wall. The air inside was heavy, still, and cool. The path was uneven, winding immediately into a series of twists and turns. The walls of the maze were not solid rock or carved stone, but living, interwoven roots, thick with phosphorescent moss that cast a soft, greenish glow. The whispers here were different. Not the communal hum of the forest, but individual, fleeting thoughts, like half-remembered dreams. Torn back, too far, lost, home, they tugged at her, trying to sow doubt. Elara concentrated, focusing on the warmth of the fragment around her neck, on the steady hum of the Sylvanus. North. Nothing. Always north. The fragment pulsed, a gentle pull in one direction. She followed it, ignoring the confusing whispers that tried to lead her astray. The maze stretched on. Sometimes the path would seem to fork into 3 identical tunnels, each leading into deeper shadow. Other times the routes would shift, closing off a path she thought she had just seen, opening another where there had been none. It was disorienting, designed to confuse. But Elara remembered the sentinel tree's words. Eye reflects the seeker's inner landscape. One kisser. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the glade's sight fill her. She felt the flow of energy, the subtle currents of magic. The fragment wasn't just pointing north. It was pointing towards the strongest concentration of the lost star-spun essence, a faint shimmer that lay beyond the maze. She opened her eyes. The path still looked the same, but now, with her heightened senses, she could perceive a faint, almost invisible pathway. A subtle shimmer in the air that only she could see, following the fragment's pull. It was like seeing the threads of magic that wove the maze together. With newfound confidence she pressed on, stepping over gnarled roots, ducking under low-hanging branches. The whispers of doubt still flickered, but they no longer held power over her. She was focused, driven by the profound sense of purpose. After what felt like hours, the path began to widen. The roots thinned, and ahead, a brighter light beckoned. She emerged into a vast cavernous space, not a clearing, but an underground chamber. The chamber was breathtaking. Its ceiling soared upwards, studded with thousands of glowing crystals that sparkled like an underground sky. A waterfall of pure liquid light cascaded down one wall, pooling into a luminous stream that flowed across the chamber floor. The air was warm, sweet, with the scent of damp earth and pure magic. In the center of the chamber, cradled by a bed of shimmering moss, lay a single, enormous crystal. It wasn't like the others. This one pulsed with a deep, cerulean light, like a captured piece of the deepest ocean or the clearest night sky. It hummed with a resonance that matched the fragment around Ilara's neck. As she approached it, a figure detached itself from the shadows near the crystal. It was a being of pure light, shimmering and indistinct, yet clearly feminine. Her form was fluid, her hair like spun moonlight, her eyes like distant galaxies. She wore a gown of woven starlight, and in her hands she held a delicate, glowing orb. "Welcome, Ilara of Silverwood Hollow," the being said, her voice like the gentle chime of 1,000 tiny bells. "I am Lyrea, keeper of the Starfall Grotto, and guardian of this celestial conduit." Ilara bowed, awestruck. "Lady Lyrea," she murmured. I did not expect to find anyone here." Lyrea smiled, a ripple of starlight across her features. "The Heartwood Maze does not allow those who are not meant to pass. You have proven your heart's truth. The Sentinel Tree speaks well of you." She gestured to the enormous crystal. "This is a minor Starheart conduit, a place where the ethereal veil thins, allowing faint echoes of the celestial realm to touch our world. It is through conduits like these that the Starheart shards can be guided back to their rightful place." "I have a fragment," Ilara said, holding out the glowing shard. "It tells me a piece of the sky has been lost." Lyrea nodded, her luminous eyes filled with ancient sorrow. Indeed, the largest of the Starheart shards, the luminous heart of Elysium, fell many centuries ago. It was too vast, too powerful to be contained by the earth. It shattered upon impact, scattering its essence across the realms, but its largest piece, its true core, remains. "And it's in the crystal spires?" Ilara asked, her voice filled with hope. "Yes, but its location is shrouded by a powerful enchantment, placed there by those who sought to harness its power for themselves," Lyrea explained, her voice growing grave. "They are called the Shadow Weavers, and they seek to bend the very light of the stars to their will. Their magic thrives in places where the ethereal veil is weak, where celestial energy is vulnerable." Ilara felt a chill, not from the air, but from the mention of such darkness. "How do I find it then? How do I break their enchantment?" Lyrea extended a hand, and the orb she held pulsed with a soft inner light. "The whispers you hear from your fragment are not merely guidance. They are echoes of the luminous heart itself, reaching out. To truly find it, you must amplify those echoes. You must gather the 3 star-whisper dewdrops, ancient tears of the constellations, scattered long ago across the lands." "Star-whisper dewdrops," Ilara repeated, trying to commit the strange name to memory. "Yes, one is said to reside in the sunken peaks, guarded by the silent sentinels. Another is hidden in the shifting sands of the Azure Desert, within the Serpent's Coil Oasis. And the third, the most elusive, is rumored to be found within the Cloud Kingdom of the Sky Sailors, high above the world." Ilara's jaw dropped. The sunken peaks she knew of, at least by name, but the Azure Desert and a Cloud Kingdom. Her quest was far grander, and more perilous than she had imagined. "Each dewdrop, when brought together, will resonate with the luminous heart, creating a celestial map within your fragment, guiding you through the Shadow Weaver's enchantment," Lyrea continued. "But beware, the Shadow Weavers are powerful. They will sense your intent, and they will try to stop you." "But why me?" Ilara asked, her gaze fixed on Lyrea's luminous form. "Why not someone stronger, more experienced?" Lyrea's starlight eyes seemed to gaze into Ilara's very soul. "The Glade chose you, child. It saw the purity of your heart, your innate connection to the star-spun essence, your unwavering courage. The glade knows that only a true heart, unburdened by ambition or greed, can safely wield the power of the Starheart Shard. The Shadow Weavers seek to dominate, to control. You seek to restore balance, to heal. She then held out the glowing orb she carried. This is a lantern of Lyra. It holds a spark of the celestial light of my namesake constellation. It will not only illuminate your path in the darkest places, but it will also help you perceive the fainter echoes of the star-whispered dewdrops, guiding you closer when you are near. It will also offer a measure of protection against the Shadow Weaver's darkest illusions. Elara reached out a trembling hand and took the orb. It felt surprisingly light, yet warm, humming with a gentle energy that resonated deeply with the fragment around her neck. Its light was soft, but it seemed to pierce through any lingering shadow in the grotto. "Thank you, Lady Lyrea," Elara said, her voice filled with gratitude and a renewed sense of purpose. The overwhelming nature of the task still loomed, but now she had a clearer direction and potent tools. "One more thing, Elara," Lyrea added, her voice dropping to a whisper. "The Shadow Weavers are not merely a force of evil. They are beings who believe they are right to control the stars, to bring order to what they see as chaos. Their leader, a formidable sorceress known as Morwen, wields a fragment of the Starheart Shard herself, twisted to her own dark purposes. She will be your greatest challenge." A shiver ran down Elara's spine. Morwen. Kant. A name to remember, a threat to anticipate. Lyrea then led her to a small hidden passage behind the luminous waterfall. "This exit will take you out of the Starfall Grotto and into the foothills of the sunken peaks. May your journey be guided by the stars, Elara." Elara bowed deeply once more, the lantern of Lyra held carefully in one hand, the fragment still warm against her chest. She took a deep breath, filled with the fresh scent of magic and the exhilarating tremor of a grand adventure truly begun. Stepping through the shimmering curtain of the waterfall, Elara found herself bathed in the silver light of a crescent moon. She was no longer in the deep woods, but on a rocky, uneven path, with the vast, brooding silhouettes of the sunken peaks rising before her. Their jagged summits were wreathed in mist, and even in the moonlight she could discern faint, ancient carvings on their lower slopes, like forgotten faces staring out into the night. The air here was sharper, colder, carrying the scent of pine and stone. The whispers from her fragment had shifted, now an urgent, insistent tug towards the highest, most central peak. The Sylvanius bird in her pouch pulsed with a stronger rhythm, its faint hum a steady reassurance. The lantern of Lyra cast a gentle, unwavering glow, pushing back the encroaching shadows. Elara looked up at the daunting mountains, then to the moon, and finally to the glowing fragment in her hand. "Die sunken peaks. Silent sentinels. Star whisper, dewdrop." What the names echoed in her mind, a new mantra for her journey. The woods were behind her, the desert and the sky kingdom lay far beyond, but for now, her path was clear, upwards, into the heart of the sunken peaks, towards the first tier of the constellations. The grand adventure had truly begun. The grand adventure had truly begun. The air grew crisp and thin as Elara began her ascent, the last whispers of the Shadow Wood's humid breath fading behind her. The sunken peaks lived up to their name, not in height, but in the sheer ancient weariness of their stone. They rose like colossal, petrified waves, their weathered crags carved by millennia of wind and ice, their valleys plunging into abyssal shadows even the morning sun struggled to chase away. Jagged teeth of rock clawed at the sky, some capped with eternal snow, others dark and forbidding, their surfaces etched with forgotten runes by the relentless artistry of time itself. Elara clutched the star-whispered dewdrop, its soft internal glow a warm beacon against the biting wind that now whipped around her. It pulsed gently, a tiny living star in her palm, seeming to guide her steps along a narrow, winding path that was barely more than a goat track. Strange, resilient plants clung to the precipices, hardy, silver-leafed bushes that sparkled with frost, and clusters of what looked like tiny, iridescent bells, chiming faintly in the wind, their music a melancholic lullaby against the mountain's vast silence. The path twisted higher, leading her through a gash in the rock face that opened into a vast, silent amphitheater of stone. Here, the mountains truly became the silent sentinels. Gigantic rock formations stood sentinel, some resembling stoic giants with bowed heads, others like watchful beasts crouched on the peaks, their forms so perfectly carved by nature's hand that they seemed almost alive. A profound quiet reigned here, broken only by the mournful whistle of the wind through natural flutes in the stone, and the distant, echoing rumble of a falling pebble. Elara felt a peculiar sense of being watched, not with menace, but with an ancient, patient curiosity. She spoke a soft greeting to the silent stone, feeling a kinship with these timeless guardians. As she traversed a high ledge, a sudden blinding flash of light erupted from the valley far below, followed by a faint, distant hum that vibrated through the very rock beneath her feet. Elara gasped, stumbling back against the cliff face. It was gone as quickly as it came, leaving only a shimmering afterimage in her eyes and a lingering tremor in the air. What was that? She wondered, her heart thumping against her ribs. The dewdrop in her hand pulsed faster, its glow intensifying as if it too had felt the strange phenomenon. She peered into the depths, but the valley had returned to its shadowed, silent state, offering no clues. The mountains held their secrets close. Hours later, as the sun began its slow descent, painting the western peaks in shades of fiery orange and deep violet, Elara found herself in a hidden hollow. A small stream, fed by melted snow, trickled over moss-covered stones, its water so clear it seemed to shimmer with starlight. Here, nestled amongst a cluster of ancient twisted pines, was a cave entrance, shrouded by hanging curtains of moon moss, a luminous, silvery flora that pulsed with a soft, ethereal light, mirroring the dewdrop in her hand. The dewdrop vibrated excitedly, pulling her gently towards the cave. Taking a deep breath, Elara pushed aside the shimmering moss and stepped inside. The air within was cool and damp, carrying the scent of wet earth and something else, something sweet and metallic, like distant thunder and blooming night flowers. The cave walls were smooth, polished by ancient waters, and glowed faintly with embedded crystals that caught the moon moss's light, turning the cavern into a tapestry of shifting, gentle hues. Further in, the cave opened into a vast chamber. A colossal, crystal-clear pool occupied its center, reflecting the starry ceiling that was not the sky, but a vault of shimmering, luminous geodes. And beside the pool, perched on a crystalline outcrop, was the most extraordinary creature Elara had ever seen. It was a glimmer-wing elder. Its body was slender and iridescent, like polished mother-of-pearl, with vast, translucent wings that pulsed with every color of the rainbow, shedding tiny, drifting motes of light that danced in the air. Its eyes, deep pools of liquid gold, regarded her with immense age and gentle wisdom. Around its neck hung a necklace of smooth, star-shaped stones, each one faintly glowing. "Welcome, Elara of the Verdant Heart." The Glimmerwing Elder's voice was a chime of crystal bells and rustling leaves, somehow echoing, not from its mouth, but from the very air around her. "We have been watching for you. The mountains whisper tales of your coming." Elara, though startled, felt no fear. "You know my name?" she whispered, clutching the dewdrop. "The stars know all names, child," the elder replied, unfurling one magnificent wing to gesture at the crystalline pool. "And the mountains are their truest listeners. You seek the first tier of the constellations." "Yes," Elara confirmed, stepping closer. "My fragment, the star-whispered dewdrop. It hums when I think of it. It feels like a guide." "Indeed, for it is a fragment of the star heart itself," the elder explained, its golden eyes fixed on the dewdrop. "The constellations in their sorrow shed 3 tears, tears of memory, tears of hope, and tears of renewal. Each one holds a piece of the cosmos's truth, a thread in the tapestry of our shared destiny. The first, the tear of memory, resides here, in the heart of the sunken peaks." Elara's gaze drifted to the crystal pool. "Is it in there?" The elder chuckled, a soft, musical sound. "Not quite. The tear of memory is not a stone, nor a liquid to be held. It is a manifestation, a fleeting glimpse of the celestial past, revealed only to those who truly listen to the whispers of time and starlight. It requires a vessel, a conduit, and a specific alignment." "A vessel?" Elara looked at her dewdrop. "Sand." "The star-whispered dewdrop, precisely. But it needs to be awakened further. It has merely hummed. It must sing. For that, you need the star-singer's quill." The elder tilted its head, its iridescent scales shimmering. "The quill is held by the whispering golems, who guard the highest peaks, the true silent sentinels. They are beings of living stone, imbued with the echoes of ancient cosmic music. They do not speak, but they listen. They do not fight, but they test. Elara felt a thrill of anticipation and a touch of apprehension. How do I find them? And how do I sing to them? Follow the flow of the Skystone River, the elder instructed, its wing now pointing to a shimmering vein of luminous crystal embedded in the cave wall, leading upwards. It flows towards the azure summit where the golems stand guard. As for singing, you must find the song within yourself, the melody of your own quest. The golems will respond not to words, but to the truth of your heart, woven into sound. Elara spent the night in the Glimmerwing Elder's cave, resting by the luminous pool. The elder offered her sustenance, tiny, glowing berries that tasted of moonbeams and mountain honey, and sips of water from the pool that invigorated her body and sharpened her mind. As she slept, she dreamed of stars falling like tears, and of colossal stone figures humming a silent ancient tune. The dewdrop glowed softly beside her, a comforting presence. The next morning, refreshed and resolute, Elara thanked the Glimmerwing Elder. "May your wings carry you swiftly, Elara," the elder chimed, offering a final piece of advice. "Remember, the mountains hear not with ears but with stone. Speak not, but resonate." Following the elder's guidance, Elara ascended, tracing the path of the Skystone River. It wasn't a river of water, but a winding seam of brilliant azure crystals, sparkling with an inner light that pulsed in rhythm with some unseen distant heartbeat. The crystals warmed her hands as she touched them, a gentle heat that chased away the mountain chill. The path grew steeper, winding through narrow passes where the wind howled like a mournful spirit, and over vast wind-scoured plateaus. Higher and higher she climbed, the air growing thinner still, until she reached a vast natural terrace. Before her, the azure summit rose, a majestic pyramid of dark polished stone, its peak perpetually wreathed in swirling mists. And standing guard around its base, immense and awe-inspiring, were the whispering golems. They were truly colossal, each easily 3 times Elara's height, crafted from various shades of mountain stone, granite, basalt, marble, and glimmering quartz. They stood perfectly still, their forms roughly humanoid, but with faces smooth and featureless, like ancient worn statues. Yet Elara felt their presence intensely, a powerful, unwavering energy that resonated with the very ground beneath her feet. They were the true silent sentinels, living mountains themselves. The dewdrop in her hand began to vibrate with an unprecedented intensity, its light pulsating in time with a faint, almost imperceptible hum that seemed to emanate from the golems themselves. This was the cosmic music the elder spoke of, a silent song woven from the fabric of the universe. Elara knew she couldn't speak to them with words. She closed her eyes, trying to remember the elder's advice. Resonate. She thought of her quest, of the encroaching shadows, of the hope for her people, of the courage she had found within herself. She thought of the gentle glow of the dewdrop, of the protective warmth of the forest, of the kindness of the Glimmerwing Elder. She let her heart swell with these feelings, determination, love, hope, and a deep yearning desire to make things right. Then, she began to hum. It was a soft, simple melody at first, born from the deepest part of her soul, a tune without words, a pure expression of her inner truth. She focused on the feeling of the dewdrop in her hand, letting its subtle vibrations guide her, letting her own energy flow into the song. As her melody unfolded, something extraordinary happened. The hum from the golems grew stronger, aligning with her own. Tiny fissures of light, like miniature lightning bolts, began to trace patterns across their stony forms. The air around them shimmered, and Elara felt a profound sense of connection, as if she were communicating with the very spirit of the mountains. One of the golems, the largest and most central, slowly, majestically, raised a massive stony hand. It moved with the slow, deliberate grace of an ancient glacier. Its palm, as wide as a small clearing, revealed a single slender object, glowing with a soft silvery light, the Star Singer's quill. It was not a feather, but a needle-thin shard of solidified starlight, cool and smooth to the touch, tapering to an impossibly fine point. Elara, still humming, walked forward, her heart pounding with reverence. As her fingers brushed the quill, the humming intensified to a crescendo, and then slowly, gently faded. The golems returned to their silent vigil, their light fissures receding, leaving only the profound stillness of the azure summit. With the Star Singer's quill now in her possession, Elara felt a surge of confidence. She held the quill in one hand and the dewdrop in the other. The quill seemed to yearn for the dewdrop, a subtle magnetic pull connecting them. Following an instinct, she touched the fine point of the quill to the surface of the dewdrop. At their touch, the dewdrop didn't just glow, it sang. A clear, pure note, like a single, perfect bell, resonated through the mountain air, echoing off the peaks. The dewdrop's light brightened to a soft, constant radiance, no longer merely a guide, but an active participant. "It sings," Elara whispered, awe-struck. The elder's words echoed in her mind. "It has merely hummed, it must sing." Now, with the awakened dewdrop and the quill, Elara knew she was ready for the tear of memory. She looked around the azure summit. The mists still swirled around the peak, but now they seemed to part, revealing a path she hadn't noticed before. A narrow, spiraling ascent, leading directly into the heart of the swirling clouds. The air grew colder, but the combined warmth of the dewdrop and quill kept her from shivering. She climbed for what felt like hours, the path often obscured by the thick, pearlescent mist. She trusted the dewdrop, which pulsed with a stronger rhythm whenever she hesitated, guiding her forward. Finally, the path opened onto a small, flat plateau at the very summit of the azure peak. The mists here were thinner, swirling like ethereal dancers around a central feature, a perfectly still obsidian black tarn, nestled in a natural bowl of polished stone. The surface of the tarn was like a sheet of pure night, reflecting nothing of the mist, but somehow, impossibly, reflecting the distant, unseen stars of the cosmos. This was it. The starlit tarn. Elara approached the edge of the tarn, the dewdrop in her hand singing its silent, resonant song. The Star Singer's quill felt warm and alive. She held them both out over the tranquil, star-mirroring surface. As the dewdrop's light touched the obsidian water, the tarn began to stir. Not with ripples, but with light. From its depths, thousands of tiny luminous motes began to rise, like microscopic stardust, swirling and coalescing above the water. They formed intricate patterns, constellations Elara had never seen before, and then, slowly, they began to shift, telling a story in light. A vision unfolded before her eyes. She saw the cosmos in its infancy, a swirling nebula of gas and stardust. She saw the birth of stars, vast and brilliant, and then the formation of planets, coalescing from the cosmic dust. She saw the great constellations, not as distant patterns, but as living, breathing entities of light and purpose, weaving the fabric of fate. Then, the vision shifted. A great shadow, vast and cold, began to creep across the cosmic canvas. The constellations, once vibrant, dimmed with sorrow. Elara felt a profound ache deep in her own heart as she witnessed their silent grief. And then, from the heart of the largest constellation, one of pure, shimmering light, a single luminous tear detached itself, drifting slowly, majestically, through the cosmic void, carrying with it echoes of ancient wonder and profound sorrow. The vision faded, the stardust motes above the tarn slowly sinking back into the obsidian depths. All that remained was the profound stillness of the starlit tarn, and the gentle, resonant hum of the star whisper dewdrop. But something had changed. The dewdrop, which had merely glowed before, now held within its depths a swirling vortex of starlight, a miniature galaxy contained within its crystalline form. And as Elara looked into it, a new image coalesced within the starlight, a vast, shimmering desert stretching to a horizon where impossible floating islands drifted in a sapphire sky. A whisper, clear as a bell, echoed not in her ears, but directly into her mind. Find the heart of the shifting sands, where the oasis of whispers sleeps. There, the tear of hope awaits. Itimatsini, Tatamoshini, Anidadawate, Altawashia, Panatanen. Elara understood. The tear of memory had not given her an object, but a vision, a deep understanding of the cosmos's past sorrow, and a renewed purpose. It had awakened the dewdrop, transforming it into a living map, a compass pointing towards the next step of her journey. The sunken peaks had yielded their first secret. Now, the desert called. Elara gazed out from the azure summit. The vast, silent world spread out beneath her, the dewdrop pulsing warmly in her hand, revealing the shimmering outline of her next path. The grand adventure was far from over. Elara took a deep breath, the crisp mountain air filling her lungs, a stark contrast to the heat that would soon embrace her. The dewdrop pulsed, its internal light, now a soft golden hum, projecting a shimmering path that cascaded down the sheer face of the azure summit, not into the depths, but outwards, across the sky itself. It was a bridge of starlight, woven into the fabric of the air, leading towards the distant, hazy expanse of the desert. With a leap of faith, Elara stepped onto the shimmering path. It held firm, a magical walkway that carried her gently downwards, the wind whispering encouragement past her ears. Below, the landscape transformed. The emerald forests gave way to sparse, hardy shrubs, then to an endless tapestry of ochre and rust, stretching to the horizon under a sky that burned with a relentless, brilliant blue. The moment her feet touched the fine, warm sand, the air shimmered with an entirely different kind of magic. The dewdrop in her hand intensified its glow, now a deep, resonant amber, guiding her not just across the desert, but high its very heart. This was the Whispering Sands, a place where time itself seemed to ripple, where ancient secrets were not buried, but etched into the shifting dunes and carried on the dry winds. The desert journey was a test of endurance and perception. Mirages danced on the horizon, tempting her with cool flowing water that vanished upon approach. The sun beat down with an unyielding intensity, but a subtle coolness emanated from the dewdrop, protecting her from the harshest rays. She learned to read the patterns of the sand, to distinguish the tracks of the elusive sand singers, creatures made of crystallized desert air, whose soft calls sounded like distant chimes. One sweltering afternoon, as the dewdrop pulsed with growing urgency, it guided her not to a monumental ruin, but to a seemingly unremarkable dune. As she approached, the sand began to swirl, revealing not stone, but a vast, intricate tapestry woven from moonlight and ancient starlight, partially buried. This was the lore weave of the sands, a relic said to contain the forgotten histories of the world, memories not of people, but of mountains rising, rivers changing course, and stars being born. As Elara touched the cool, shimmering fabric, the dewdrop resonated fiercely. Images flooded her mind, not a single linear history, but countless possibilities, divergent paths, moments where the cosmos held its breath, waiting for a choice. She saw echoes of the past sorrow, not a singular event, but a series of forgotten disconnections, tiny fractures in the tapestry of existence that, over eons, had widened into chasms. The lore weave taught her that sorrow wasn't a punishment, but a signpost, guiding sentient beings back towards harmony. It awakened within her an intuitive understanding of the interconnectedness of all things, the Whispering Sands lore, allowing her to perceive the subtle energetic threads that bound the world together. She now understood that healing the sorrow wouldn't be about fixing a broken thing, but about reweaving what had come undone. With this profound insight, the dewdrop glowed a vibrant emerald, its next projection a shimmering path that led away from the scorching plains, towards a distant verdant haze on the horizon. The Whispering Sands had given her wisdom. Now, the Whispering Forest called. The transition was abrupt and breathtaking. One moment, she was surrounded by golden sand, the next, by a riot of emerald green. Towering trees, ancient beyond measure, formed a dense canopy that filtered the sunlight into dappled patterns on the mossy forest floor. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming night jasmine, and filled with the gentle rustling of leaves that seemed to carry secrets on every breeze. The Whispering Forest was a labyrinth of life, vibrant and teeming. The dewdrop, now a luminous forest green, guided her through groves where trees hummed with their own slow, deep thoughts, and where streams sang melodies that changed with the seasons. Here, the challenge was not endurance, but presence. The forest demanded attention, a slowing of the heart to match its own ancient rhythm. Elara encountered shy dryads, whose skin was like bark and hair like leaves, guardians of specific ancient trees. They did not speak with words but with gestures and shared feelings, teaching her patience and the subtle language of growth. The dewdrop led her deeper, to the heart of the forest, a place where the trees grew so close their branches intertwined, forming a living dome. In the center, a single impossibly ancient tree pulsed with a gentle, golden light. This was the heartwood, the very core of the Whispering Forest, and its roots were said to reach into the deepest veins of the world itself. As Elara approached, the dewdrop pulsed in harmony with the heartwood, and she felt a surge of pure, vibrant life energy. She placed her hand against the tree's ancient bark, and a song filled her mind, not of words, but of pure emotion and vitality. This was the Heartwood Song, the melody of creation and renewal. It resonated with the Whispering Sands lore, showing her how the universe constantly reweaves itself, how life finds a way even after devastation. She understood that true healing didn't just mend what was broken, but fostered new growth, new connections. The Heartwood Song granted her an ability to perceive the intrinsic health and balance of living things, and a gentle touch that could encourage growth and mend minor wounds, not just in plants, but in the subtle energies of creatures too. The dewdrop, now a brilliant sapphire, pulsed with a new, urgent energy. It projected a path that soared upwards, directly through the dense canopy, piercing the sky itself. The next destination was revealed not on the earth but far above it, the celestial spires, legendary structures said to be woven from solidified starlight, floating among the clouds at the very edge of the world. Ascending from the forest was like shedding a skin. The emerald leaves gave way to open air, then to swirling mists, until finally, Elara emerged above the cloud cover, into an expanse of endless blue dotted with shimmering, ethereal towers. These were the celestial spires, their surfaces catching the sun like polished jewels, their highest points piercing the very fabric of the cosmos. Reaching the spires was a breathtaking feat. The dewdrop guided her onto invisible currents of pure starlight, carrying her aloft towards the nearest, most magnificent spire. Its entrance was not a door, but a shimmering curtain of nebulae, through which she passed into a world of pure light and cosmic energy. Inside, the spires were vast hollow spaces, filled with ancient observatories and libraries made of crystallized starlight. Starweavers, beings of pure light and cosmic dust, moved silently among the constellations projected onto the walls, their forms shifting like distant galaxies. They were the keepers of the universe's ultimate truths, the chroniclers of every star's birth and death. The dewdrop, now a vibrant amethyst, led her to the central chamber of the grandest spire. Here, suspended in the vastness, was not an artifact, but a swirling vortex of pure cosmic energy, the very heart of the spires. It was here that the true nature of the cosmos's past sorrow was revealed. It wasn't a single event, but a gradual forgetting, a slow drift into isolation among the sentient beings of the universe. They had forgotten their shared origin, their deep interdependence, the fundamental truth that they were all threads in the same grand tapestry. This forgetting had created dissonance, a subtle disharmony that echoed through the cosmos, diminishing its vibrancy. The dewdrop flared, becoming a kaleidoscope of all the colors it had ever displayed. It was no longer just a map or a compass, but a conduit, a vessel, perfectly attuned to the universal energies. Elara understood now. The sunken peaks had shown her the sorrow's existence. The Whispering Sands had shown her the history of forgetting. The Whispering Forest had taught her the G-power of connection and renewing, and the celestial spires had revealed the A-source and the Yin-Si to heal it. Clutching the fully awakened dewdrop, Elara stood before the cosmic vortex. She didn't need to fight, or to perform a grand spell. She needed to remember. Drawing upon the lore weave, she recalled the countless threads of existence. Channeling the Heartwood Song, she felt the vibrant pulse of interconnected life. With the dewdrop as her anchor and conduit, she poured forth her pure intention, a remembrance of unity, a gentle reweaving of the forgotten threads of the cosmos. A wave of pure, harmonious energy rippled out from her, channeled through the dewdrop, touching the cosmic vortex, and then expanding outwards through the celestial spires, beyond them, into the vast, silent reaches of the universe. It wasn't a forceful correction, but a gentle reminder, a song of belonging sung to every star, every planet, every sentient heart. The universe hummed in response. Not with a shout, but with a sigh of profound peace. The subtle dissonance faded, replaced by a symphony of quiet harmony. The stars seemed to twinkle brighter, the nebulae swirled with renewed grace, and a deep comforting warmth settled within Elara's soul. The cosmos was whole again, not by magic alone, but by a rediscovery of its own inherent truth. Her adventure was complete. The dewdrop, now a soft, pearlescent orb, pulsed with a gentle, continuous glow, no longer guiding, but radiating pure contentment. Elara descended from the celestial spires, carried on the gentle currents of a newly harmonized cosmos. She returned to the world below, not as a hero, but as a silent keeper of memory, a whisper of unity. She knew that the grand adventure wasn't just about reaching a destination, but about understanding the journey itself, about the quiet magic of connection, and the endless possibility of renewal that lay within every heart, waiting to be rediscovered. And as she finally rested, the dewdrop settled beside her, its soft light a promise that even the grandest sorrow could be soothed, and that every new day brought a chance for the world to sing its song of harmony once more.